Good afternoon, everyone. You are welcome to corporate governance class. Without wasting much of our time, um, we'll look at the role of stakeholders in business. The role of stakeholders in business. We've explained in our previous class what corporate governance means, which has to do with a system by which companies are directed and controlled. Now, there are set of relationship between a company's management, that is between the boards, the stakeholders, and other shareholders. This will provide the structure which the objectives and the monitoring performance are determined through the stakeholders, through the shareholders, and the rest. Corporate governance can be viewed as both the structure and the relationship which determines corporate directions and performance. It's always based on how a company is being directed and managed. Today, we'll be looking at the role of stakeholders in our business. Who is a stakeholder? A stakeholder is usually an investor, someone that invests in your company, and his actions determine the outcome of your system. It determines the outcome of your business. A stakeholder don't have to be uh, equity shareholders. There's difference between a stakeholders and a shareholder. I explained that in our last class. Now, a stakeholder can also be your employees who have a stake in your company's success and incentives for your product to succeed. They have a share in the company. They can be business partner who rely on your success to keep the supply chain going. Now, every business takes a different approach to stakeholders. The roles of stakeholders differ between businesses, dependent on the rules and responsibilities laid out as the funding of your company or as your business evolved over the years. The most common definition of a stakeholder, however, is a large investor that has a clout to hold a viable stake in your company. That is, every stakeholder is a large investor that have a stake in your company. Now, let's look at decision making within the company. The most common gathering of stakeholders in a public traded company is the board of directors, comprised of high-ranking executives and occasionally outsiders who hold a large amount of equity in the company. Any one of these stakeholders has the power to disrupt decisions or introduce new ideas to the company. Now, in decision making, the stakeholders has the power, the authority to either bring or to either rearrange how a decision is being made within the company, or can also introduce new ideas to the company. The board of directors has the power to appoint all levels of senior management, including the CEO, and remove them if necessary. In our last class, we talked about the board of directors. They are the people that are selected, they are selected people by the stakeholders, by the owner of the company to manage the affairs of the organization. So any one of these stakeholders has the power to either bring in new ideas, bring in or change the decisions of the company. Now, but the board of directors has the power to appoint all levels of senior management, including the CEO, and they also have the power to remove them if necessary. Members of the board dictate the future of the company and are involved in all major decisions. Now, I explained in our last class the internal governance stakeholders, which include the company management, the executives, the board of directors, the shareholders, and other corporate stakeholders, as well as the employees. Those are the internal governance stakeholders. Now, so a stakeholder might be a company management, executives, board of directors, employees, or shareholders. and other corporate stakeholders, as the case may be. So they have the power to employ and also to remove if necessary. Now, direct management. While the board of directors is a more hand-off approach to controlling a company, some stakeholders prefer the hand-on approach, like directly managing of the company. They want to be involved in controlling, in managing the company. Some stakeholders or board of directors might decided to hand off. That's they leave everything to the staff, while some would prefer to work on hand-on approach. That's assuming management position. A board of directors can take the position of a CEO, it can take the position of the executive manager of the company, it can take any form of position, any management position, any senior management position. So stakeholders can take over certain departments such as human resource or research and development to micromanage the business and ensure success. In private owned and traded companies, large investors often directly participate in business decisions on the management level. We have the investors. Who are the investors? They are the stakeholders. We call them large investors, who will either increase or decrease their stake in your company according to your financial performance. If the company's financial performance is improving, an investor can decide to increase its stake within the company. Now, the investors act as guardian angels for everyday investors, poring over financial reports and pressuring management to change tactics if necessary, to change their approach, their strategic if necessary. Certain stakeholders, known as activist investors, will make widely unpredictable investments in order to move the share price and attract media attention to a certain issue. Now let's look at corporate concerns. Large stakeholders are generally high-profile investors and would like to steer clear of companies that trample human rights and environmental laws. We talked about the image of a company. We talked about the importance of corporate governance, which will improve the image of the company in the public face. So corporate concerns includes large stakeholders that are generally high-profile investors that invest in large amounts, and they will stay clear of companies that trample human rights and environmental laws. They have like a conscience. They don't invest in any company that trampled upon human rights and environmental laws. Any company that has bad record, that have history, they don't like to invest in such company. They monitor your company outsourcing activities and globalization initiatives, and may vote against your business decision if they are deemed harmful to the company's long-term goals. So the large stakeholders, which are the high-profile investors, they may vote against your business. That's against the strategies, your decision, your business decision, if it will be harmful to the company's long-term goals. Other responsibility, of course, this is only a broad description of stakeholders' responsibility. Ideally, you have stakeholders who care about these four issues. That's the corporate concerns, the investors, the direct business, and the decision making. And we have stakeholders that cares about these issues, but more often than not, short-term profit take precedence over long-term sustainability. While stakeholders may own your company, it's easier to control your investors when your company is privately held than publicly traded. Oftentimes, the large influx of cash from a successful IPO turns out to be a deal with the devil when your company is suddenly taken over by a board of directors. That's when there is cash flow within your company. Every high profile personnel will want to be part of your company. So that's why they explain it that it might turn out to be a deal with the devil when your company is held publicly traded, not privately traded. Now, on the flip side, however, stakeholders can keep your company grounded and focus on its most profitable product and sustain your company's earnings. Let's go on. Let's look at the corporate governance structure. The corporate governance structure. The established corporate governance structure comprises of the following parties and also provides a comprehensive framework to enhance accountability to shareholders and other stakeholders, to ensure timely and accurate disclosure of all materials matters, deal fairly with shareholders and other stakeholders' interests, and also maintain high standards of business ethics and integrity. These are the structure of corporate governance to enhance accountability to shareholders and stakeholders, ensure timely and accurate disclosure of all material matters, deal fairly with shareholders and other stakeholders' interests, and also maintain high standards of business ethics. It's also specifically designed to enable companies to discharge its duty of ensuring an orderly, informed, and fair market, and of ensuring risks are managed prudently while pursuing its business objectives, which helps reinforce Hong Kong's position as an international financial center. Now, this four main structure will help the company to discharge its duty in an orderly manner to inform a fair market and ensure risks are managed prudently while pursuing its business activities. Now, we have the board of directors, which is responsible for providing leadership either directly or through its committees and its subsidiaries in order to deliver long-term value to shareholders and other stakeholders. Now, board of directors also lead and supervise the group management to act in the interest of the public as well as its shareholders. But in case of conflict, the former shall prevail. That is, they are to work either directly or indirectly through committees and its subsidiaries. That's this group, the group of committee. So which they are also there to supervise the group management to act in the interest of the public as well as the shareholders. Now, it establishes corporate policies, that's board of directors, sets strategic directions, ensures that an effective internal control environment is in place, and oversees the management, which is responsible for day-to-day operations. The board, however, recognizes that delegating its functions and authority to its committee and the management does not absolve its overall responsibility for the sound governance. Let's look at the 10 board committee. The 10 board committee. They assist the board in focusing on specific matters, fulfill their roles and responsibilities delegated by the board. They are to report to the board on decisions and action taken by the board. They are to monitor the management performance and make any necessary recommendation. So the board of directors can also be the subsidiaries, that's group of committee. They are to assist the board in focusing on specific matters. They are to help the board to fulfill their roles and responsibility while putting in mind the objectives of the company. They are also to carry out, uh, there are other forms of subsidiaries. There are other forms of committee like audit committee, environmental, social and governance committee. We have executive committee, investments advisory committee, nomination committee, a member nomination committee, project oversight committee, the nomination committee, risk committee, and risk management committee. All these are part of the 10 board committees. There are 10 in number: the audit committee, the environmental, social and governance, the executive, the investments advisory, the nomination committee, the panel, and the rest. Now, all these committees are to help or assist the board on focusing on specific matters as their area of concentration is. The audit committee, they are in charge of the auditing. We have the environmental, social and governance committee. They help in managing the image of the company. We have the executive committee, the investment and the rest. Let's look at the company secretary. He is responsible for facilitating the board process as well as communications among board members with our shareholders and the management, and advising the board and its committee on all governance and CSR matters. Now, all these are the work of the company secretary. The secretary is an intermediary between all the board members. He passes information to the board members and also to the shareholders and the management as well. Is responsible for facilitating the board process in terms of meeting and every other aspect of it. We have the 3 consultative panels. They act as the advisory bodies to the board and the management to provide market expertise and advice relating to the cash market. These 3 consultative panels, they are there to advise the board on issues on the market and also any issue relating to cash market. Now, we have the management committee as delegated authority from the board for performing the day-to-day management functions of the business, and they are also there to implement all projects to initiate as approved by the board. The external auditor and internal audit department, they are to provide assurance on financial reporting or internal controls to ensure accountability and audit quality. They are there to audit every account, both internally and external. Now, their auditor, theirs is to ensure that every financial report is correct. They are to ensure that there's no theft or fraud within the company. We also have the shareholders. They elect their representatives as directors at general meetings to oversee the group's business. The shareholders will come and they will have their meeting. They might decide to elect representatives as directors, as senior management members, as executive members to run the affairs of the business. Other stakeholders, they interact with the group on daily operations. They include institutional investors, market regulators, government bodies, listed potential issuers, and market intermediaries. They also include exchange clearing participants and members, information vendor, and market participants. Mainland exchanges, overseas exchanges, investing public, media and analysts, non-governmental organization, industrial or industry association, professional bodies, market users, suppliers, business partners, and employees. All these are other stakeholders. They are there to interact with the group on daily operations. They are there to include, they are there to help the group and also the board to achieve their specific aim. Let's look at some specific aim or the objectives of the company. Let's look at the roles and benefits of a corporate governance framework. We've talked about the benefits of corporate governance in our last class, but let's talk about the roles and benefits of corporate framework. Having a common governance framework can play an important role in helping boards gain a better understanding of their oversight role. The framework should have attributes that contribute to effective governance and tools for addressing governance risks. A framework also provides a more cogent construct for evaluating how management responsibility fits with the board's oversight responsibility. Having a common governance framework can play an important role in helping boards gain a better understanding of their oversight role. The framework should have attributes that contribute to effective governance and tools for addressing governance risks. A framework also provides a more cogent construct for evaluating how management responsibility fits with the board's oversight. The essence of a framework is to help all the management or board of directors to focus on their specific responsibility to fit with the board's oversight responsibility. That's the role of a framework. A framework can also play an important role in helping boards gain a better understanding of their oversight role. There might be some roles that are not clear enough. Having a corporate governance framework will help each board members to understand their work. It helps them to understand their responsibility better. Let's remember that the goals of corporate governance is to keep the interests of stakeholders in mind, to treat shareholders equally, to identify the roles of the board of directors, and to help the company to be transparent enough. So the framework should help each management, each board members to understand their responsibility better. Let's look at a tool for addressing governance risks. A tool for addressing governance risks. In the importance of corporate governance, we talk about lowering risks that corporate governance mitigates or reduce the amount of risk that is involved within the company. In times of scandals, fraud, criminal liability of the company, and every other one. Now, a tools for addressing governance risks. Why do boards and management team need a governance framework to operate? Now, a framework helps define the role of the board and management, delegate duties, and help prevent duplicated effort and the overlooking of critical issues. It can also assist with the execution of the board's core processes by providing structure to policies and tools. That is, tools like annual calendar, meeting agendas, committee charters, and guidelines. This also allows the board to focus on the right issues and properly prioritize its limited time and resources. In addition, a framework provides the board with a structured way to collaborate with management on specific issues that the company faces within or with minimal risks of confusion and loss of production. So a framework will help the board to focus on the right issues. It helps the board to prioritize its time and resources. It also helps the board to structure the way on how to collaborate with management on specific company rules and on what the company is facing in order to minimize the risks and loss of production. In developing the governance framework, consideration was given to a number of questions with which boards often struggle with, including what should the board be doing in the critical areas of oversight, such as strategies and risks. In dealing with legal and regulatory compliance, how can the board be positioned as a strategic partner with management? All these are questions that board management struggle with. What should the board be doing in critical areas of oversight, such as strategic and risks? That's the essence of the framework. So a framework helps to answer all these questions because the framework will help the board to focus on the critical aspects of the company. It helps them to focus on the main issue the company is facing. It helps them to make sure that they don't deviate from the essence of their responsibility. So in dealing with legal and regulatory compliance, how can the board be positioned as a strategic partner with management? The framework offers an end-to-end view of corporate governance. It forms the basis for the tools that help boards and executives identify opportunities to improve effectiveness and efficiency. Now let's look at the board's unique role. What are the roles of the board members? What are their roles? Now the governance framework proposed that there are at least 5 critical elements of the organization governance program. Those related to talent, performance, strategy, governance, and integrity that the board cannot simply delegate to the management. In each of these respective elements, stakeholders expect that the board is not solely serving as a monitor of management programs, that the board has a specific role to play, such as the selection of the CEO, that's the head of the corporation. Now, risks and culture sit at the core of the governance framework, as everything the board and management do to create and maintain effective governance program is predicted on the existence of strong risk management and a culture that supports doing the right thing. Now, here, risks and culture sit on the core of the governance framework. The risk management, a strong risk management structure helps the company to achieve its aim and help the company to avoid unnecessary scandal. So, and if there should be a culture within every organization that is doing the right thing, that everybody must follow. Everybody must follow a framework in doing the right thing. The board has a set of key objectives and activities for each of these governance elements, which includes or which could be described as governance, strategic, performance, integrity, talent, and risk governance. All these are the key objectives and activity for each of these elements. Now, governance, the board establishes structures and processes to fulfill board responsibilities that consider that the perspectives of investors, regulators, and management, among others. The board selects its member and leader via an inclusive and thoughtful process aligned with company strategy. Now let's look at the strategy. The board advises management in the development of strategic priorities and plans that align with the mission of the organization and the best interest of the stakeholders, and that have an appropriate short-term and long-time or long-range focus. So the board also actively monitors management execution of approved strategic plans, as well as the transparency and adequacy of internal and external communication of strategic plans. So the board is to establish the structure, and while establishing this structure, we put bear in mind the responsibility of the board members and also the objectives of the stakeholders. The board should ensure that every strategic is followed in toto. Every strategic plan is followed and is transparent enough. Performance. The board is to review and approve company's strategy, annual operating plans, and financial plans, It's also to monitor management execution against established budget, as well as alignment with strategic objectives of the organization. It's also the board, in terms of integrity, the board is to set the ethical tenor for the company, while management adopt and implement policies and procedures designed to promote both legal compliance and appropriate standard of honesty, integrity, and ethics throughout the organization. Now, there should be a tenure, like a CEO is supposed to, an executive director is supposed to use spend 4 years, while a new one will be put in place. Now, in terms of talent, the board is supposed to select, evaluate, and compensate the CEO and oversees the talent program of the company, particularly those related to executive leadership and potential successors to the CEO. The board the board communicates executive compensation and succession decision in a clear manner. And the last one, without wasting much of our time, which is the risk governance. The board should understand and appropriately monitor the company's strategic, operational, financial, and compliance risk exposure, and is also to collaborate with the management in setting risk appetite, tolerance, and alignment with strategic priorities. All these, all these are the board's unique role. They are to govern, they are to create strategic in managing the company, in meeting up with the objectives of the organization. They are to approve and look into performance, the performance of the companies, and the rest. Now, I'm going to give an assignment. You also send it to um, the my private email, bimselai@yahoo.com. The assignment is state clearly the role of the board. Now, let's start with this. Who are board members? Who are the board members of a corporation or a company? Who are the board members of a corporation? And state 20 roles of a board member of the board, 20 roles or responsibilities of the board. Who are the board members? Number one, question one, who are the board members? State 20 roles or responsibility of the board member. Thank you for your time. We'll meet in our next class. Have a nice day.